I just want to welcome everybody. This is Cisco DevNet runs interactive developer education at Postman with Stuart Clark, who is a developer advocate with Cisco. And big shout out to Cisco for being one of the sponsors for Postman Galaxy. Feel free to check out their booth at the Expo Hall whenever you have a chance. So welcome, Stuart. We're so glad to have you with us, and you can go ahead and get started. Oh, actually, real quick before we get going, if people have any questions, please put them in the Slido chat. That's under session on the right side of your screen. There's a little tab called Slido, and that's where the Q&A can take place. So thank you, and Stuart, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, everybody, today. Today in this presentation, I'm going to talk about how at Cisco DevNet we run interactive developer education using Postman. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a developer advocate with Cisco DevNet. I've been with DevNet for 3 years, and I've been with Cisco for 9 years. I started my career as a network engineer. Like most network engineers do, started in NOC, picking up phones and having people yell at me for 8 or 9 hours of a day. And then as my career progressed into sort of senior network engineer, more senior people yelled at me. And eventually I worked into sort of network engineers and projects. And then that led me into doing network automation. And I was so passionate about network automation. This was the reason that I joined DevNet, because I thought network automation is really where our future is at, and how we can leverage network automation, and how, you know, this is the way that we see the industry going. So as a network engineer, this is, you know, what network engineers see. This is pretty much a paste out of a Cisco device of configuring BGP. And a lot of the traffic that we get, or a lot of the people coming to DevNet now, or network engineers, such as like I was 5 years ago, who were, you know, using the CLI and logging into devices manually, box by box, as we like to say, jumping through these boxes and doing configurations manually. And this is great when you've got 10 devices, 20 devices, but, you know, this can go, when you start scaling these devices and you're heading up to sort of like northbound of 50 devices, even to 100, 200 devices, logging into these devices is very difficult. And as we know, 80% or 90% of network outages are actually caused by humans. There has to be a better way. There has to be a better way to do this. So how do we move on from what we've been doing for years as network engineers? How do we move this onwards? Well, the first thing that we see, or when we're talking to network engineers and we start talking about infrastructure as code and codifying things and model-driven programmability, you start showing them snippets of things like YAML or XML or JSON, and it can be quite scary. It can be quite daunting. You know, you're going from something that was designed and built for human consumption. The CLI was designed for humans to read, to make it interactive, to when you're adding those commands in there. Plus, we know when you're using a platform, you can use the tab and the help function. There's a lot of things that are built around within that to help you figure out if what the next command is and what that next command does. And then there's the show commands and the configuration commands. And then when you start doing this, looking at this, and you start writing this into either Notepad or an IDE set like VS Code or Atom or Sublime, you move away from having those kind of luxuries in there. And it's moving that information, what we saw on the last slide, into storing the information as code and using computer-based languages such as YAML, JSON, and XML. But the first time, you know, when you're talking to network engineers and they're looking to get into doing automation, look at this, this can be quite daunting, quite scary. And it can seem all of a sudden like you're looking up at like Mount Everest. And so there's a way to get around that. But we spoke a little bit about before, you know, so why all the network programmability? For years and years, I've stored network configuration code as, say, in Rancid, or just storing as the running configurations. But troubleshooting this is a monumentous task, going through this line by line by line. And there's a disadvantage of this is the manual operations. We spoke about the box by box and the human error of configuration this. The financial cost as well, because as the network began to grow, as did adding more people onto the teams, And then you've also got those dependency risks, and the dependency risks become in where you're almost creating silos within your own team, because certain people have deeper knowledge of certain protocols and certain infrastructure pieces. And then also you're putting all of the emphasis on the network or on the network team itself. And the network, as we come to understand the network in the last 10, 15 years, was like moving an 800-pound gorilla. It was very, very slow. It wasn't agile. But this was something that a lot of teams wanted to embrace. They wanted to embrace what they saw in SRE teams, what they saw in DevOps teams, and they wanted to have that codified workflow and that agility built into their workflows. So when you're building the foundation for the network, what we found on Cisco DevNet was education. Was obviously the key part to this. Really upskilling people into understanding the programming languages and how they all work, how they all sit together. But when we looked at the slide on YAML and JSON and XML, putting that down in front of somebody is probably like somebody who's never spoken, say, Mandarin, and they're a native English speaker or a native French speaker or a native German speaker. Looking at the languages itself and not understanding what any of it means and what the concepts are and how it's broken down, or even the pronunciation, that can be really hard and really, really daunting. So you have to build that programmability framework. And this is where Postman really, really comes into its advantage for Cisco DevNet. So we run a number of things at Cisco. We run virtual events, we run webinars, we run in-person events when they're possible. We call DevNet Express. And really the whole ethos around the DevNet story is teaching people how to consume Cisco APIs. And this is on platforms such as NSO, SD-WAN, Cisco DNA Center, WebEx Teams, on things like SecureX, Firepower. All of the platforms that we have APIs. And our customers and our partners and our community want to start consuming those. Jumping right in there by using something like C or Java or Python, coming from a network engineering background, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a good deal of time to build that skill up and to become confident in writing in something like Python and writing API calls and leveraging those with Python. And this is how Postman really, really helps our developer community. And it helps us from an educational standpoint when we're building things as well. The first thing that we do when we're in our events or when we go through any of our structured learning or our learning labs is introduce our community into Postman. As we know with Postman, it's super friendly and easy to get started. And we can pre-build environments using our Postman collections and have our community, our partners, attendees for webinars, attendees for our events, actually log in or get their their Postman client up and running. They can import a collection, and within minutes, they're making API calls, and they're seeing things like you can see on my screen. They're seeing output from doing API calls with SD-WAN and bringing back structured data in formats like JSON. All of a sudden, it's like you're breaking down that wall. It's no longer scary anymore. They can see the structure in the URL because they're familiar with URLs and how that works. And we can break down how the URIs work with different platforms such as SD-WAN, NSO, and DNA Center, for example. Break that down and show people how they can start retrieving data and how they can start integrating this into their workflows. Further down the line, we can show them how to build Postman collections, how to build their own environments, how to do post requests, get requests, all these kind of things that we're familiar with when using APIs. To help people even further, we built our own Postman collection. I think we've probably got about 18 to 19 collections in here as well, and this was really ideal for us. We have the Postman collections in different learning labs and in code exchange and automation exchange, which we have on Cisco DevNet. But we wanted to integrate more and further the interlock and the relationship that we've had with Postman for so many years now. So the Postman collection for us was a really great evolution for us to add everything that we have when working with Cisco APIs where we have Postman collections for them, just in that single one place where people can go along and get them. The advocates such as myself and our SE community contribute to these regularly, and we update these on a regular basis as the APIs are more modified or new APIs come out, or we just find new and cool ways to do things with APIs with Cisco products. If you have more questions, I'd love to stay in touch with you. All the details from me on the screen. You can reach out to me at my email address. I'm a regular tweeter on Twitter. You can catch me at Big Evil Beard. We'd love to hear your thoughts over at Cisco DevNet. We're very, very interactive in all the social communities. It'd be great to see some contributions in code exchange and autumn exchange from the Postman community, where we publish all of these for people to see, which is considered highly curated repos, highly curated Postman collections. And with that, I'll let you to enjoy the rest of the Postman Galaxy conference. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you today. And like I said, if you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Stuart. That was really great, and I really appreciate your contribution to Galaxy.
Thank you so much.
And since I don't see any questions in Slido or in the chat, then I'm going to hop off. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good time. Bye-bye now. Bye.